Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of our Picture This podcast series here on Whiskey Throttle Media. I'm excited today to be here with Dean Wilson. What's going on, Dino? How are you, man?
Yeah, doing good, thank you. Just out here in the Florida heat. Yeah, just getting ready for these SMX races. Yeah, training and riding and being a dad and yeah, here we are.
So is it safe to say that now that you're not racing outdoors that you're missing it, or no, you're good?
No, there's definitely times where I'm like, oh man, I wish I was out there because when I'm on outdoors, I feel really good. But when I see like a track that's kind of muddy where you're like they're just dabbing their legs constantly, like High Point, I think was really muddy at the beginning of the day. I think it was quite muddy all day, but something like that, I'm like, God, no, thank you. Just because, mainly the reason I stopped doing outdoors is because my knee just can't take that kind of punishment anymore because I got a bad knee. So when I see tracks where like you can kind of keep your feet on the pegs, like I'm like, oh, I do miss it. And I do miss kind of that outdoor grind a little bit, which is funny. I don't think I thought I would ever say that, but there's just something about the outdoors that gives you that good like self-satisfaction, like when boss out 235s in the heat and you're just grinding all day and if you put in a good result, it's a good feeling driving away. You're like, oh, that was a good grasp. But when you don't get the good results, you're like, oh, I don't why am I doing this? You know what I mean? But I did miss it a little bit, I'll be honest. Outdoors, it's just been pretty hard on me the last probably 6 years with how bad my knee is.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously with all the injuries you had, I can imagine, being a little more taxing on the body compared to
Yeah.
Supercross. So, but you got your fix in, right? And we'll talk about, your
Yep.
championship in 2011. But I appreciate you getting on, man. I was looking like we hit before we hit record, we were talking about, your career. You're still racing, obviously Supercross, World Supercross, but just looking back at all of the photos and all the you've been at this a long time, it was hard to pick, you know, these photos because we could have went on and talked about it for a long time. So it's really cool to kind of go back and relive your story a little bit. So I'll pull up the photos and we'll dive right into it.
Perfect.
Um, First one here is Loretta's 2009,
Yeah.
when your last year at Loretta's, and you're basically fighting for a ride at that point. You're riding for the Canada, I think that was dog food team back in the day, right? It
Yeah.
was a
That's right.
yeah,
Yep.
it's cool. Those I remember those graphics and all that. But basically, your last year at Loretta's, you went in there and won, and then but you're still battling with Baggett for that last spot on PC.
Yeah. Yeah. It was crazy. So it's not like it is now. Back then, kids just weren't signed when they're on 85s or super minis or whatever, like I think Tomac and Barsher, Geico seemed to always sign them quite early. But so that was 2009 Loretta Lynn's. I knew that year was going to be huge for me. Really, all I wanted to do was just um, show Mitch Payton that I had what it takes to ride for his team. And so I'd done everything I could that year to win. Because that's what really sets off your career. That last year amateurs to get that pro contract. And that's 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 that little, push start into your career. So I was very dominant that year. I lost a few races, but not very many. I won just about everything. Um, and yeah, it's just like I won Loretta. It's got the Horizon Award. Still didn't really hear from Mitch. I went into his office and I told him like, hey, I really want to ride for you. Like, I'll do whatever it takes. And he didn't. I left not really knowing what he was thinking because he didn't say a whole lot. And it was between me and Baggett. We're battling for the spot, but also Ryan Marias was also on the team, and it was his bike that we were going for, really his spot. So it was kind of us three, and then I think it went down to just me and Marias, and I ended up getting it. I want to say it was late October when I got this contract, and it was crazy. And Dave Gavlin was a massive help to get me on that team, and also Ryan Holiday. They were huge helps, but it was tough work getting on there. Like but it was a dream come true. Like that's when PC was in that era of just dominating. And
Yeah.
only a year before, like 08, 09, like I was still watching the Pro Nationals. Like I want to be on that team, and yeah, next 2010 I was on it. So that was a really really good feeling.
Yeah, like you mentioned before, maybe Tomac and Barsha and those guys had those rides coming up. It was a little different back then. And do you think that made you hungrier and more driven? Where now, you have a lot of these guys that have signed deals on 65s and 85s, right? And so they've kind of had it their whole career growing up to
Yeah.
where, I mean, you're here again, you're not, you're going pro, but you don't really know what team or if you're going to have a team. So do you think that it was different back then because you knew you had to just grind and it was you looking out for yourself?
Oh, for sure. There's not more motivation you could want with winning every race and not really not being signed yet, you know? And now I feel like they're signing they're signing them very young, and a lot of the times it doesn't work out very well. And it's actually quite funny. I seen this quote Michael Jordan said on Instagram. He said they're signing, it was about pretty much the young basketball players coming up, that they're signing them on potential. They're not signing them, they're saying on what they could possibly do, you know? And I feel like kind of that's what they do now, because everyone they'll get snatched up so quick, which I understand. So, they're giving them the big money young. Like, I mean, basketball is another level, but Michael Jordan had a good quote. I'll have to send it to you. And yeah, he said that they're saying them on potential. They're not,
Not proven.
exactly, but it was a good
Right.
quote. I was like, man, that's true. But it was tough, but you couldn't ask for any more motivation for me. I wanted to be on Mitch's team, I'll tell you, I remember my mom taking a photo of me when I was signing my first pro contract. That's why I was like, Mom, stop. You're embarrassing me. She's like, oh, you're gonna remember this. It's quite funny.
Yeah, those, I mean, PC obviously is still a really good team. But back in those days, I mean, they were the team. There's a lot of good teams now, but it feels like, back then everybody wanted to get on those bikes. It feels like Mitch was a step ahead in the four strokes back
Mhm.
then. And it was probably just a, dream come true to get signed and, know you had a spot and a home for the next coming years as a pro.
Yeah,
So,
it was awesome.
so we go from there, before pro, and then we'll go to one of the most famous moments, I think. So you raced, turned pro in 2010, raced the Supercross and outdoors. Then you go in and outdoors in 2010, Freestone. I think it was
Yeah.
round 3, and you
That
went
was
third.
round 2 or 3 for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and you got third the first moto, and I mean you led
Mhm.
that entire second moto, and
Mm.
obviously,
Stella eats at me. Stella eats at me. So that's Freestone National 2010. Um, I I want to say it was the second round. Hang 10 was round 1 and that was round 2. And I got third the first moto and I was killing it in the heat. It was really hot that day and I was just like feeling so good there. So it was just one of those rides. It was one of those rides that gave me that like, holy crap, I can actually win one of these. And so I got third the first moto and actually Tomac smoked himself first moto. I think he was battling with Purcell. And that's when I think he put himself in such a hole that day. He was kind of done for this season. He wasn't done, but he could never get
yeah,
back to that
yeah. Hmm.
where he was. It took him a while to recover. So I was so good in the heat that day. And so I got third the first moto, second moto, came out. I don't know if I whole shot it or not, but I was in the lead. I was gone. I never seen anyone the whole race. Gone. And I'm just feeling so good on the bike. I wasn't even that hot. Like I mean, I was hot, but so I come around last lap and I blame this on my mechanic. Okay, I wasn't lying when I said I felt really good that day. Paul, my mechanic, wrote 5.6 seconds on the board. 5.6, like lead. And why he put 0.6, I don't know. I swear, I never seen anyone the whole race. I thought it said 56-second lead. So I am cruising the last lap, just I see my teammate come up, and it was just like the biggest brain fart. I just thought, me and Tyler, we trained and rode together during the week, and oh, he must be a lap down. So like, I look back and I just like let him go by, and then the next 2 corners later, he fist pumps over the tabletop like he just won, and like my heart just dropped, and like this was going to be my first overall win, my second ever pro national. And then I go over through the rollers. I didn't even know this. This eats at me. This is the even worst part. I still had the overall win with him winning. And I'm rolling the rollers and I'm just devastated. Like my stomach dropped. And off the finish line, Brock Tickle passed up the finish. And I went from first overall to third.
Third.
And that's why that picture on the right, I don't even think I was crying that bad there. I cried for like weeks. I was so hurt. Like, that's why with my hands are up, like Oh, that one hurt. That was 50 grand bonus down the drain. My first ever win, second pro national, just off a brain fart move. And yeah, I was devastated. So that was a tough one. That was a tough one. I still got third overall, but that win was literally right there.
Yeah, and I know Paul is one of your biggest fans, right? And so
Yeah.
it's crazy. I think I remember watching back that race a bunch of times, and that last lap, everybody's just like, you looking at it like, what's he doing? They're
Yeah.
right there,
There
and
was
then
so yeah, there's so many people, oh, the heat got to him or something. Like honestly, the heat wasn't that bad. It was just I never seen anybody the whole race. Like I was gone. And then when he wrote 5.6, I don't know why I was dumb enough to think I know I was riding good, but I don't know why I was dumb enough to think I had a 56-second lead. So obviously I never seen the point on the pit board.
right.
So yeah, that was a tough one, but
Yeah,
that's all.
you're.
Race to the checkers, right? Race to the
Mhm.
checkers. No friends. No friends on the track. Lesson learned.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. I mean, obviously you're young right there, but what did Mitch say when you after the moto? He
Oh,
was he pretty mad,
he
or was he
felt
like,
no, he wasn't mad. He just felt bad. I mean, how could he be mad? He still went one, two, three
I
on the
know.
podium. I think he just felt bad for me. That was that was a tough one, but also like it was kind of cool because it showed me like I can win or I can win, you know?
Mhm.
And just
Yeah.
thinking like I was at that Loretta's race not long ago. Now my racing, it's just that the whole like rookie year for me was just like a dream. Like I was just living what I always wanted to do. It was so cool. So
Yeah.
rookie year was definitely one of my best years, just learning and everything was new and I didn't know anybody and it was fun. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you came out swinging, right? I mean, you were
Yeah.
going really fast, even in Supercross too, and then you come in the outdoors and like, I mean, pretty much had a moto win here. Then, 2 weeks later, you get to Budds Creek and you kind of obviously, you went 3-1 for the overall here, and
Yeah.
probably deserving, right? Moto Gods took one away from you the 2 weeks prior, so that had to feel pretty good knowing that, hey, 2 weeks ago I gave it away, but you were able to get it done a couple weeks later.
Yeah, for sure. So Butts Creek 2 weeks later. Actually watched this not long ago. I think I got fourth the first moto.
Hmm.
I came from like 14th or something. And then the second moto I won it. So I went 4-1 for the overall, which is actually kind of impressive.
Hmm.
But I definitely deserved that win after Freestone. And that was my first ever overall win. So yeah, it was cool. It was a pretty stacked class that year too.
Hmm.
You know, you had Purcell, Kennard, uh, Tomac, Barsha, Baggett. Baggett got hurt actually, I think at Budds Creek. Um, Rattray. Man, there was
There's a lot, yeah.
a lot of heavy hitters for sure. Wharton was there, Metcalf. So it was good, but it sure felt good to get that win, you know. And it's actually funny, like, if I really, when I look back at it, I really feel like obviously your rookie year is always a learning year, but I feel like I could have won the championship outdoors that year. And it doesn't eat at me because
Yeah.
it is what it is. But like looking at how good I was riding, the guys I was beating, I was just inconsistent. I would win a race, then I'd have a bad race, and
Hmm.
like, Kennard came from 57 points down to win the title that year.
Yeah.
So that you're just like, oh man, like so.
That's the
It's
year that Porcel had that wreck at Paula, the last race of the year, right? And broke his shoulder or something like
right.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was crazy. No, it was a good year for you. Obviously,
Yeah.
as a rookie, getting an overall and probably proved to yourself at this
Yeah,
point.
I got two overalls that year. Should have been three. But and I got it. Paul, I went 1-1, so that was cool. So that year was awesome. Rookie of the year and the perfect year to go into 2011.
What did you, off topic of winning, what did you buy with your first bonus check of winning an overall?
Nothing. Nothing. Your dad from Scotland. We're tight over there. We're tight over there. So
uh, well,
yeah.
yeah, and then obviously in 2011 you win the outdoor championship. You were on the podium every race but one. You had, I think, 3 or 4 overall wins. And I think the thing that sticks out the most to me on that year, obviously, was you were dominating, being on the podium, but was Paula last round, and you were doing that crazy section where you're like wheel tapping up and then
Mhm.
jumping off. Like that was just insane. Like
Yeah,
that year was.
a lot of people will remember that one, that big guy. It was like a dragon's back, and I jumped
Mhm.
off the top. And yeah, I mean, 2011 was just an awesome year. And it's kind of funny when I look back. I was really down after Supercross because me and Barsha were going for the title and I blew the championship. I got second, but
Mhm.
I really wanted that title and I blew it. So then going into outdoors, I was really fired up and I won that what I feel like really kickstarted me in the outdoors was I won the first moto of the year. And then that just really set the tone. And yeah, I was just very consistent, won a lot of motos, didn't win as many overalls, but like I don't even think I won overall till Unadilla. But I was just gathering up so many points every weekend and I was consistent and oh man, just such a good year. Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. Nothing really to say. It
Yeah,
was
I
just
mean, I think your
good.
first.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was fun and it kind of came easy to me towards the end. Like it was like I actually a little backstory on that last round at Palo was I was doing that big jump. I did it in press day, and then in 10 qualifying on race day, I went to do it on my qualifying lap and I didn't get the pocket clean. So I scrubbed the top of it to not to pull out of it. And I landed in the hole. And I kind of hurt my wrist. I was like, ah man, that hurt my wrist a bit. So I raced all day and I went 1-1.
Mhm.
And 2 days later, we're flying to MX Nations and we go to test our race bikes at some track. And I'm like I've been icing my wrist, thinking I just sprained it. And I'm like, oh my God, my wrist. Like I'm just moaning about my wrist all weekend. I race, I'm getting them shots. I forgot what it's called, like Toradol maybe.
Oh yeah.
And I was
Mhm.
trying to race, and long story short, I raced Destinations and Pala that weekend with a broken scaphoid.
Oh
I
wow.
didn't
Yeah.
even know until after Destinations. And honestly, when it was broken, it made me so happy because like I was bitching and complaining about it for like 5 days straight that my wrist like it hurt that bad. And then yeah, it ended up being a broken scaphoid. So that's kind of how we ended up 2011, which wasn't great, but yeah,
Yeah, it
uh,
was a. I think your worst overall finish that year was a fourth. So I
yeah.
mean, you were just second, first, second, second, first. I mean, it was impressive. And again, being your second year in outdoors, like it was pretty cool to check that box. Regional Supercross title I think is one thing, but an outdoor where you have to do 24 motos,
Yeah.
especially in the second year, is really impressive.
Yeah, it was
Um,
good. It was good.
so then you went, you had 2012, you finished second in Supercross behind Tomac. Um, you had some up and downs in Supercross, and I know, that you had that 450 ride that I think it was 2014, and then you end up going back to pro circuit. It was kind of.
2020, after 2012, I signed with the Jeff Ward team.
Mhm.
Um, and then that team actually fell apart. And then
Mhm.
so then I went back to Mitch for 2013 because I really just wanted to win a Supercross title because I
Yeah.
never got one. And I was leading it. And I think I just lost the red plate. And then I crashed in a heat race and got hurt in 2013. So anyways, 2014, I was like, all right, this is it. Last year, going to win you a title, Mitch, and we're going to go off to the 450 class. So here we are. This is 2014. I raced the West Coast Supercross, battling with Jason and Cole Seeley on the West Coast and Mookie. And then actually kind of a funny story. So me and my friend just jumped in the car and went to Vegas one weekend randomly. And I get this phone call, and it's from Chad. And he's like, hey, you want to come race for me? Because he just got hurt at San
Mhm.
Diego. And I was like, yeah, sure. He's like, all right, I just need you to do 3 or 4 races for my discount tire contract. I was like, all right. He's like, your first one will be Indy. I think Indy was like 2 weeks away. And like, maybe like it was the next week. I can't remember. And I'm in Vegas. So I guess we had something to celebrate.
Yeah.
And yeah, so anyways, do a couple rounds, top 10, top 10. Then we come to Daytona and like, what a crazy day. Qualified fastest.
Mhm.
Was feeling so good on that bike. And then I won my heat race, and this picture's from the heat race. Can truthfully say I beat Bubba
You did. We were
when he
talking
was
about
still
we were
when he
trying to
was
find
still
that
like
photo. Yeah.
yeah, and he was still really, really fast. Like this was the last, I would say the last year he was really on it. And dude, I don't know, it was just all clicking. I felt so good on that bike. He was behind me the whole heat race. I won the heat race. Main event, whole shotty, RV got me, and then I ran second for about 15 minutes. Last 5 minutes, the parachute, yeah, parachute came out. And I went back to seventh. So I went from second to seventh. But kind of crazy because with that showing, that's what got me the factory Red Bull KTM contract. So you know, they see me ride the 450, and I did a couple more races after Daytona, and I was dicing it up with Bub in 10 qualifying. Like it was just surreal. Like
Hmm.
also I've looked up to Bub my whole life. And I remember at Toronto, I would do a qualifying lap and Bubba would be up top. And then boom, the 15 knocked him off. And I was like, yes. And then by the end, Bubba would get me. But like I was really going back and forth. And I was like, man, it was pretty cool. And obviously this, like I said, it's from the heat race. And this is when he launched the wall behind
Yeah.
me
Hmm.
just to flatland. Don't know how his back felt after that, but no, it was cool. It was cool.
Yeah, and we were talking about, I was trying to find that photo. I found like a YouTube clip of it, but I just remember, watching him, I think it was the last lap too. He just sent that wall jump and just landed in the flats and didn't get you, obviously. But I mean, he was right behind you the entire heat race. So that had to have been
Yeah,
pretty cool beating, like I said, he was still going really fast that year.
yeah,
Obviously, he's one of the best to ever ride a dirt bike. So it had to have been cool to be, racing with him. But not only that is, riding and beating him in a heat race where he's trying everything he can to get around you.
yeah. No, it was amazing. It was cool. Like I said, I just felt so good on that bike though. Chad had a really good setup on that bike, and I was ripping hole shots, and I've never been a great starter, and on that bike I was just ripping good starts and just really gelled with it. And the team was cool too. Lars was my mechanic, and we had a good time. And Chad would come to the races. It was fun, and Mitch was cool with it. So it was pretty fun.
Yeah, that had been cool. You're still rocking the PC gear, and obviously Chad had that Cowie support on that team at the time too. So that had been a cool opportunity for you to after the West Coast go race some of these 450 rounds. So that had been a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was a lot of fun for sure.
So then you go, you get signed by Red Bull KTM for 2015, 2016.
Yeah,
Obviously had some injuries, and that probably had been a dream ride for you at the time, right? Red
yeah,
Bull KTM, Red Bull athlete, things like that. And then obviously things didn't go the way you wanted them to. And then
yeah,
this is Anaheim 1 2017, and it's you on a
yeah. Back in
privateer.
the trenches, back in the trenches. So I rode for Red Bull KTM 2015 and 2016 and blew my ACL out both years. Probably raced maybe 8 races out of the 2 years. Pretty rough, really, really rough year, a couple years. And I was down bad. And I'll never forget, they told me in the office and I knew it was coming. And they're like, they got a sheet. You raced this many. Roger had a sheet. He says, oh, you've raced this many races out of 29 races, or actually, I think they were combined. So it would have been like
Mhm.
60 races. You
Yeah.
raced like 8 or 10. And then seminar result, I'm like, mate, you don't need to, you don't need to tell me. Like they're like, yeah, we're not going to resign you. And oh man, that one hit so hard. It was such like and it's business. Like it's what
Yeah.
it is. I was hurt. I couldn't do my job. So it was tough. So, yeah, it was a privateer. And it was just me and my dad. I had a couple close friends helping, had some really, Mitch actually helped, as you see at the PC, done a lot of the bike. Keith McCarty got me a couple Yamahas to ride. And actually, I went into Yamaha to talk to Keith McCarty about riding for the factory team. And I'll never forget this. I just come off Red Bull KTM. And first off, he's calling me by the wrong name for the whole meeting.
Oh my gosh.
And I didn't even correct him. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then second, he's like, how would you feel about being our test rider? Now I'm only 26 at this point, and
Yeah.
I'm like, it was such a like stab in the heart. I'm like, I'm not there yet. I'm not
No.
like trying to be a test rider. I was like, well, I'm trying to ride for your factory team. He's like, well, why don't you test some parts for us and we'll get you a few bikes and this and that. I was like, all right, fair enough. So that's what we ended up doing. I tested some parts for them. And yeah, he helped me out. He actually put together a cool little contingency program, top 10 bonus
Oh,
program.
cool. Yeah.
It was actually decent. And yeah, dude, within 3 or 4 races, this is when Purcell wasn't making the
Hmm.
I don't know what was going on with him that he wasn't making mains and it wasn't good over there.
Hmm.
So he was gone, and then Bobby called me, and oh man, like I can't tell you how hard I worked during the off season. Obviously, just like kind of being clipped from Red Bull KTM, and then just being a privateer and just being at the track, and then working on your bike afterwards and getting it ready for the next day, and then going to places to pick up parts. Like that's where I just have so much respect for the privateers because it's a grind, dude. It's nonstop, and I really worked hard at that. And um, so when I got that call from Bobby, and he's like, do you want to come on the team? And it was for the full year. And then it was just amazing, just getting that call and just like that sigh of relief. I was just like, oh man, like just not having to do all that extra stuff that I was doing, like
Mhm.
it was just back to the training and riding and not all the washing the bike, working on the bike, getting parts, all the extra stuff you have to do. And oh, it was just such a good feeling. Like I can even I can express the feeling of gratitude I had at that point. It was just I really earned it, And I think that's probably why it was such a good feeling. Was like I either could have quit after that Red Bull KTM and was done, and I really fought tooth and nail to get back. And then to get that call from Bobby Hewitt was really cool. And that was me for 2017. And oh man, that year went awesome. Really good.
Yeah, it was crazy thinking about, right? You get signed by Rebel KTM, like you said, it's a business. There's not much you can do with
Right.
injuries. Like it's not your fault. And then after those injuries, you get dropped by KTM, and then was there just no phone calls, and you're just like, man, I have to do it on my own. Did you have anybody reach out, or were you just like, well, this is what I got to do?
Yeah, there's nothing really available. Honestly, everyone was already saying there was no spots. Yeah, it was tough. Uh, yeah, there's nothing there. So I was just like, well, I'm just gonna have to earn it. And the thing is, it's like if you still have that belief in yourself that you really truly like believe, like I know I can ride a bike fast.
Yeah.
And I had that belief that I could still do it. And that's half the battle. If you don't have that, it's going to be tough. But I still believe that I still had some years in the book left. You know what I mean? So that's why I just went at it, and I earned it this time, which was it was. I mean, I've always earned it, but I really had to crawl my way back. And crazy to think that was 2017. That same year, I got two podiums outdoors. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think too, maybe put it in perspective, right? You're used to just showing up with a gear bag, riding,
Yep.
they take your bike, you go home and train or whatever. We're here,
Mhm.
like you mentioned, you think about the privateers, right? You're
Oh,
washing the bike, you're doing everything, you're getting all the parts, and then you're still trying to do the riding, training, getting to the races, that whole thing.
yeah.
It's definitely probably open your eyes. But again, obviously you're only 26. You knew you could still ride a bike fast, and that showed, and you got picked up by Rockstar uh, Husqvarna. But I think too, I think this is when you've always been big on social media and promoting, you have your own YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I remember this year you had a cool pit setup. You had that artificial,
No, not
was that
this.
not, oh, it wasn't
No,
this
that
time.
was part two. That
Oh,
was
part
part
two.
two of the
Oh, I'm way off then.
privateer program. So this was just me and my dad out of a Sprinter, right? But it's kind of funny because see this bus in the background? I had a friend that owned a tour bus company, and he brought me a tour bus. So I was a privateer with a tour bus. It was a bit miss and match, but
Yeah.
no, it was pretty cool. He brought it out for me, but it did smell a bit smoky from all the all the wrappers and shit that were in there. But it was yeah, that was part one of the privateer journey right there. That I was back. I was back. It gets a bit better.
So you go from there, like you said, so you go to Rockstar Husqvarna for basically after a couple of rounds of 2017 Supercross, you go to the outdoors, you get like you
Yeah.
said, a couple podiums, and then you rode for Rockstar pretty much the whole time until 2022. I know you mentioned you had that second stint of kind of privateer ish,
No, that was 2019.
2019, but
Yeah,
if you
so
go for, so I was going to fast forward to 2018.
yep,
This is your, I watched this race back too. So you get your first
yep,
Supercross podium. It's, I think, on the last lap with Brock Tickle, you guys kind of came together.
yep, yep,
You and Brock are good friends, obviously, and
yep.
but that was for the podium. You ended up second overall, your very first Supercross 450 podium, um, coming from your prior being on that privateer Yamaha. How did that
Yeah.
feel?
Oh no, that was amazing. It was amazing getting that because that Supercross podium was just one thing I never had. I got second that night. It was awesome. It was a great feeling. But the thing that's crazy about that year I came in that year so prepared, and I crashed out at A1,
I remember.
hurt my
Yeah.
shoulder, didn't really get back for a while, but I ended up actually tearing my ACL that year, and I kept it quiet. And so like right there, I have a torn ACL, and I raced all year in Supercross,
Hmm.
and then I'm getting ready for outdoors that same year, and I get cross jumped at Glen Helen by some guy that was trying to race me, and I go to put my other leg out to save me when I landed because he like took my front wheel out, right? And I ended up blowing out my other knee. So now I had two torn ACLs on each knee. And I was just, oh man, that was bad. That was bad. Then I was out all 2018 summer with both ACLs done. And that was rough. That was, the first time I was privateer was tough, but this one was probably the toughest yet because Zacho was coming up.
Hmm.
I had a good relationship with Rockstar,
Hmm.
but Bobby and Scuba, they were so awesome to me. They tried so hard to keep me on the team, but they're like, hey, there's not a spot available. Zach and Jason are there. And so I was like, all right. So we kind of did like a privateer program. But it going into 2019, like I was fired up. That was the most probably motivated I think I've ever been in my life. I double ACL surgery on each knee. That I got kind of sacked from the team after like this, just got a podium. And then I also got dropped by another sponsor. And it was tough. It was very, very, very tough going into 2019. And so that's when I was a privateer again. And I almost won A1 first race back
Hmm.
as a
Hmm.
privateer. And I had a little bit Husky support though. They gave me a good engine, but everything else was out the sprinter van with the AGL grass and everything. It was a cool little setup. But yeah, it was quite funny because they never rehired me Husky, right? So I was like, all right. So I did a little side Husky deal, like by myself with Rockstar helped me. And I got all my own personal sponsors. I got Ignite, Dan
Hmm.
Bilzerian was sponsoring me. I got AGL. I had so many cool sponsors. I had Lululemon. I had all these like really cool sponsors that committed to helping me. And I've worked my ass off to get these sponsors and just get the program together.
Yeah.
And then like a week before A1, Zach gets hurt and they're like, hey, you can come on the team now. I was like, no. I was like, I've worked so hard physically. I've worked so hard on putting this program together. I was like, I'm at least doing 4 races with them. So like I got offered back the ride to be on the team. So I went into A1 and I qualified second. My heat race, I got second. Main event led the whole thing till like literally 4 laps to go, and it was turning into a mutter. And
Hmm.
my goggles got messed up, and I couldn't see like out my goggles. And Barsha got me, and there was like these two big doubles in the middle.
Hmm. Hmm.
And if you didn't double them, there was like you'd lose 2 seconds that lap. And I missed the doubles a few times. Anyways, long story short, I got fourth. Still an amazing ride, but I literally, if I would have won that and had a red plate with
Your privateer supporter
oh,
program.
it would have just been so sick. But
That would have, yeah.
nonetheless, 4 rounds in, was back on the team. Back there again. And then yeah, I was all good pretty much from there till 22.
Into 20, yeah, into 22. So you had a long stint there, like you said, back and forth.
Yeah, so about
That
6 years. Yeah.
I think one of the coolest thing, and I was going to put it in here, but I figured I'd stop with this photo. But I remember watching that video of you riding at Dan Bilzerian's house.
Right.
You over the pool on his, obviously his mansion. Like that had to have been pretty cool to do. And obviously, I mean, you're at a super nice place and you're riding your dirt bike through his, through his
Mhm.
property. So that had to have been pretty cool.
No, it was crazy. Like that was the most insane house I've ever been to or seen. He was really cool. He helped me out a lot. He caused a shitstorm, which was actually kind of cool for me because
Yeah.
I was the first one to bring CBD into
Hmm.
Supercross, and a lot of people. It wasn't like I don't know. It was a weird deal. And then Supercross came to me, at the race, like, hey, you can't run that. And then and you can't see it on the podium. And they just like he just kicked off on Twitter, and like it got some good clicks and views though,
Yeah.
and caused a bit of a story. But yeah, it was crazy. It was really cool. It was just something different. This guy Eric was a big part of that. He helped make that happen, and I'll remember he had this massive party. It was called Angels and Demons Party, and I think it was Valentine's Day, and it's very, very exclusive, like just all celebrities. And so it was on a Wednesday, and it was before Dallas Supercross, in between the season, right? I was like, you know what? F it. I don't care. I'm going. Like, this is a once a lifetime deal. I'm
Yeah.
going. So me, my wife Sarah go, and I could bring whatever friends I wanted, right? And we're just like, holy shit. So we go to the party Wednesday night, and like I remember just there was about 30 athletes pretty much, and then there's probably about 250 girls wearing next to nothing. And it was just insane. It was like um there was a part like Cardi B performed, DJ Carnage, Offset it was just like insane. It was insane. Like I would go to the bathroom, I would like bump into fucking Cowboy Cerrone, like like, and then like you go to like make a drink, OBJ's next to you. You're
Oh,
like, what is going on? Like it was insane. It was so cool. Yeah, I sent it and had a good time. We had a really good time. And then um I flew out that next morning to the race to Dallas, and I think I ended up getting seventh or something, or eighth. So it wasn't a bad weekend, because that's kind of the range I was at. I was like
yeah.
from like fifth to 10th. So I was perfect. I pulled it off, and it was all good. But I'll never forget that party. We actually went to, I think we went to one more, but yeah, it was just something that I could not say no to. So
No, you got to take advantage of those opportunities, and it's crazy to think about how much you pulled from outside sponsors, like people
oh,
like
for
Dan
sure.
and all these different companies. And I think that's obviously you've had a big following, and you're very good at marketing yourself, and that's very important in the sport nowadays. So I think that's really cool. And
Yeah.
you rode for Rockstar till, like I said, till the end of 22. You had a couple more podiums along the way, and you rode
Yeah.
for the Firepower Honda team in Supercross this year,
Yeah.
and you're doing the World Supercross.
Yeah.
My last question really is, well, I guess two more questions is, one, I think when you look back at your years as from turning pro to now, I feel like you're one of the most talented Supercross riders that didn't win a 250 title or win a 450 Supercross race. You had obviously a lot of injuries. Those knees have got to be pretty bad nowadays. So I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Are you happy with how your career went? I mean, I know it's not over, but are you
Yeah.
happy, or do you wish certain things were different? But I feel like overall you had a really good career.
Yeah, no, I'm happy. It just, hey, I came out guns blazing, started my career off so good, right? Like, won a lot, won a championship second year, boom.
Mhm.
Expectations are already up here, right? So
Yep.
if you're not what you were doing, and it is tough though. Like I was battling with Tomac for a championship, and
You got
look
hurt your
he is,
shoulder on that one.
yeah, and look where he's at and where I'm at, right? You're like, damn, but I've grown a lot from it. I've learned a lot. I love racing, and I'm happy with my like I've done well for myself, and it's made me the person I am. Like I've really had to fight tooth and nail just to stay in it, and I just had a lot of injuries. I've torn my left ACL 5 times, torn my
Jeez.
right one once. So my right knee's fine, but my left one's I need a knee replacement, but like you got to just wait as long as you can for that. You don't, I think they only last like 15, maybe 20 years. So if I got one now, when I'm 45, 50, I need, you know what I mean? So yeah, so a lot of injuries, which is unfortunate. But still I've had good results, Rookie of the Year 2010, Champion 2011, battling for the Supercross title 2012, battling for the Supercross title 2013, battling for the Supercross title 2014. And then that's when the knees kicked in. 2015 ACL, 2016 ACL, 2018 ACL, 2020 ACL. Like it was just insane. So um it's been tough, but honestly I wouldn't change anything, because I've just learned so much, and it's made me the person I am today. I'm very grateful and appreciative of everything I've got. And like I said, I used to battle with Tomac, and now he's on another level, and nothing but respect to him. I used to have a bit of a chip on my shoulder with him when I battled and for the championship, and it got a little bit ugly. But I'm 31 now. Like I'm not a kid no more, and
Yeah.
I respect everything he's done. And yeah, I mean, I'm just I'm just a top 10 guy here. If I can be in the top 10, I'm happy. And that's honestly with how bad my knee is, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and we all, everybody can take back certain things they did when they're young. Now you're older, you're a dad, you're married, a lot more
Yeah,
perspective on things and more appreciative. So that's just maturing,
yeah, for
as
sure.
when
For
we're
sure.
young teenagers, it is what it is. But that's
Yep,
cool,
yep.
man. Your career was fun to follow. I mean, I've watched you since you turned pro and always been a fan. You've always just been, you know, you just say what's on your mind. You tell everybody what's going on, and felt bad every time you got injured. It's like, man, not again.
I
As
know.
I'm sure you felt the same way. It's you, but so you're riding World Supercross. How you're at the basically the end of
Yep.
twilight of your career. Are you thinking a couple more years, or are you just playing it year by year and you're not sure yet?
Playing it year by, playing it by year. Just gonna see how it goes. The reason, like I said, I don't do outdoors is to kind of let my body heal. I think, when you get to this age, like if you don't do outdoors, you really let your body heal and you can get more longevity. I feel really good right now, like body wise, like I'm feeling good, and it's because I'm just letting my body rest and heal a bit. Like I'm still training, I'm riding, getting ready for the SMX races. But like it's nice to let your body heal and like not like when I was racing outdoors, I was just in constant pain and like my knee just could not take it. Because I have no cartilage, I have no meniscus, it's just bone on bone, just like it's always just grinding. So just to like have a little bit of a rest and do the World Supercross rounds. I'm racing Australia Supercross, and then US Supercross. So still keeping busy and yeah, still, last year it wasn't great by any means, but still managed to crack a top five, top 10
Hmm.
in points. That was my goal, really, be top 10 in points. And yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, that's cool. And there's nothing wrong with that JB program that he's been doing for a couple of
No,
years.
he really laid out like the blueprint for it. I feel like, like that's kind of like what I kind of that program intrigues me for sure, like racing and then just chilling during the summer and then go do the Aussie races, do the off-season races, and then I'm into that. I like that. So we'll see how much longer we go for here.
Well, cool, man. Hey, I appreciate you taking the time to kind of reminisce over your career. It's been fun to watch you all these years, and it's cool to always look back and see what you did at such a young age, and obviously still racing, and even in the next year. So yeah, man, appreciate it. I'm sure people enjoy this. You're like the people's champ, and
Yeah,
everybody always tunes to that YouTube, and
that's
also
it.
you have to bust out the Grandpa Earl thing
I
again.
know Earl needs to come back. Earl needs to come back. All right. Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. And we'll chat to you later.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye bye.